Hi, Doug here. So I want to show you the 3D model. So this is what I set out to create from scratch, and this was to design the case without wasting any materials. So I started with a model of the case. This was actually from GrabCAD. This is of the Apache case from Harbor Freight. I verified the dimensions and had to scale it to fit the exact size of the case once we purchased it. And then I had to start figuring out the layout of components. So I started with the buttons first. So if we go to the button drawing here, I had to figure out the proper layout of where everything was going to go. And from that, I created a 3D model of the button board. Well, I needed to know how big these buttons were, and not many people have arcade buttons fully modeled, so I had to model the hat button with the knob, the switch, and everything because I needed to know exactly like where these index pins went, how the switch oriented, because if you look at the actual case itself, it's very tight fit for everything. And by seeing this mark in the back of the case here in the middle, I used to have the plug located in the back here, which I thought was perfect until I closed the lid and realized these wires were going to hit that plug. So I had to move it over to the side here, and then I had to make sure it would clear the speaker. So I set up a case that allows me to look inside of it. So I could look and see what clearances I'm going to have, look at it from the side, and just see how the hardware is all going to line up. I even brought in all the hardware from McMaster to make sure everything I ordered was going to be the exact size needed. I knew how high each nut and bolt was going to be, what size the spacers were going to be. It was a fun adventure. I also went through and modeled up like the amplifier that was going to go in there because I had to make sure when the hinge swung open that it would clear and latch. I also had to make sure this latch was in the right place to line up for that. So basically, once I modeled this all up, I sent out the drawing to our fabrication shop where they drilled out all these holes. Where normally I could send this out to a fab shop or a fabrication facility with a DXF file and they would just CNC cut it out. Because it was done by hand, that's why I had to add so many dimensions to this. We'll go back to the hinge open one here. And this is where I modeled all the exterior hardware. So you can see the screws that are hidden inside the latch here. I'll zoom in a little bit. And then the hinges across the back as well. So I also modeled where these screws are going to come through for the text panel to make sure they wouldn't interfere with any of the ribs. Speaking of ribs, the bottom screws I showed you in the other one, I had to make sure that they would clear. So I actually laid out this board here inside the case with those ribs known to know where everything would go, and then I could lay out the components to clear everything, to fit the power supply, the distribution block, and the Arduino. And for the Arduino, I just used a photograph of the actual board and just stuck it to a extruded material, so I didn't have to model the whole board. But it gave me an idea of where the headphone jack was going to stick out and make sure everything would clear. And again, this was laser cut out. So this was a fun project. Again, this was fully modeled in Fusion 360. And then I was able to take these files and build the actual case. And what's real nice too is these text panels, I was able to extract those as DXF files and send them to our graphic artist. So she knows exactly how big they can be. And then when they get cut out, they'll have the holes already in them and they'll already be beveled to fit perfectly within this case. So it's a pretty exciting little process. And I figured you guys would get a kick out of it. Thanks for watching.